Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. We'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the
flag,
The flag.
United States of
United
America,
States of America,
and to the
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation,
under
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty.
liberty and
Justice.
justice for all. For all.
Thank you, gentlemen.
That sounded great.
Yeah. There will be no agenda adjustments this evening. As you know, the meeting is on Zoom and being recorded, videotaped and recorded. And because this is a remote meeting, all the votes will be roll call. I will ask, are there any comments tonight from the public? I don't see anyone. Okay, moving on. New business. We will be voting to accept a regional agreement amendment. And I'm going to ask Dr. Hickey to explain what we're voting on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, everybody, first of all, for jumping on this meeting. The timing of this meeting had a lot to do with waiting for officials from the Department of Education to do their final scrub down. I presented this to you at length on July 24th, and I wouldn't presume to go through it again. But just for the record, I wanted to be able to share with you, the materials that I've shared with you include the PowerPoint presentation, a summary sheet, and then a line-by-line strike through. With your approval tonight, the document that I'll put up on the screen right now is what I would be sending to, our regional agreement says that if the school committee puts forward a regional agreement amendment, that the school district will send this out to the respective select boards. I'll send it out unofficially via email, at least getting it in the hands of our early town meeting. That's Hanson on October 7th, and Situate has something on November 18th. But this document here with accompanying materials will go out to the towns, and then I will work with you and your respective towns to engage as these special town meetings approach. At this point, I anticipate all of our communities, with the exception of Abington, will have a special town meeting scheduled somewhere between October 7th and December 16th. Once 6 communities pass this amendment and we get the certified results from the town clerks, we would provide DESE this information, and then they would move forward to bringing this for review to the commissioner. So the document on the screen here is, I won't go through each change, but I'm just going to say, if you see the lines down the side, the focus of the changes has to do with making this a 4-year rolling average to calculate debt. Most of this document, as you can see, remains unchanged until we get to the section of the Word document that has to do with debt. And what I've highlighted in yellow, it's actually just a minor word change on line 170. And then again on line 223 was the last 2 changes from the Department of Ed to change the word existing to the word previous in terms of the debt. They simply chose a different adjective. And this is the only change since the last time I presented this to you. So the bulk of the changes fall here. I think these comments will be helpful to the casual reader or anyone we have to explain this to, that for every change, there's an explanation as to why we're doing it. And there's also a summary sheet that says, okay, what are the changes that just involve grammar? And what are the changes that are substantive? There are 2 major categories of changes. One is we're moving everyone to a 4-year rolling average, starting in the 2nd year that we would be borrowing. If we get this MSBA project, the 2nd year of borrowing would be fiscal 27. But the 1st year we're leaving as is, which is the 3-year look back that has been in existence since the start of the regional agreement. I'm going to go to the next page just to point out that there are a few places in this document where I've created examples or illustrations. They're in italics. This is very wordy, dense language. And even though if I stare at it 100 times, I still like an example to kind of see how the language, how does that work in real life if someone didn't look at this for another 5 years? So there are some parts of this document where it's not actual legal language, if you will, it's illustrations and scenarios. But the second category of change just has to do with how Marshfield, what I call Marshfield's on-ramp, happens. And that falls in section 5. And what it boils down to is that we're going to start having Marshfield look back 4 years once they have enough student enrollment. And in order to get there, that will take until fiscal 33. And that's
Wow.
that's the fiscal year when Marshfield will have, if you bear with me, 4 years of having 4 grades of kids in the building. And that's what I would call an apples to apples comparison. It was the same mindset we had when we wrote the original language. And Joe and I have talked to Marshfield town administrator about this, and there are no concerns on their end in terms of the intent to try to, again, we're trying to do calculations that allow for the arrival of a new community, while at the same time building something for the long haul, which is a 4-year rolling average. This means that debt shares will no longer be fixed at the time of authorization. I think that's probably enough of a summary. I would be more than happy if anyone has a question on a particular part of this. Otherwise, between the last meeting in July and my quick summary here, I'm content with the detail I provided you.
Okay,
I'll make that a motion to approve.
I'll second that, Dan from Whitman.
Just real quick, gentlemen, before we take a vote, I just have a quick question, if that's all right. Tom, can we use the Marshfield on-ramp model if the project were to be approved going forward with adding another new community? Is that still a possibility with the changes to the regional agreement?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Dustin. My short answer is yes. If we add another community somewhere in the next few years, we would reopen, we would do the exact same process we've done here. But I think the legwork we've done, in my personal opinion, I don't know why we wouldn't follow the same mindset. The reason for the on-ramp is that nobody wants to pick an arbitrary sum of money, not knowing how many kids are going to be in the school from that community. It was the wisdom that led us to the first round of language, and I think it makes sense. It's a pay-as-you-go model until you have enough enrollment to be apples to apples. So I would say, Dustin, that yes, if we have another community, we would open up this agreement. We would write a new section called Town X's transition into the district, and possibly have a copy and paste of some form or another, along with maybe the stabilization language, which was that has not changed, which is Marshfield's original entry into the district. So the short answer is yes, I would agree with that approach.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question, Tom. If and when the school project passes, when do we expect to sign shovels in the ground? What
Shovels would go in the ground in the late spring 2026.
Okay, that's 2 more years from now, right?
So what I have been saying, Dan, is in terms of borrowing for a project like this, in fiscal 20, this fall or this winter, when I bring you a fiscal 26 budget, I will be including, because it'll be before the vote, we'll be including an estimated amount of debt service based on borrowing, and we're going to pay interest only in the first year. So the messaging to our towns is we're going to borrow a little bit of money and pay interest in fiscal 26. That's about $750,000 at last count, divided between the towns. In fiscal 27, we'd borrow 60%. In fiscal 28, we'd borrow 90%. So the shovel part that you're describing, Dan, would be, let's say, fiscal, well, I guess would be the tail end of fiscal 26, but the construction in earnest is into 27 in terms of July 1st, the rolling over.
And
to fiscal
when
27.
you expect, what I'm looking at is with this change, when the school is built and finished and the kids are in it, there could be a big fluctuation of other towns. I mean, that would open up a lot more space for Marshfield. It would open up a lot more space for any other town that would like to join us. And that would help towns like Whitman, Hanson, Abington, Rockland, with, having the most enrollment. At least it would change things,
I think it absolutely could change things, Dan, and it's this, and it would be a future school committee's direction and decision regarding our admissions policy.
Right,
If, for instance, if in the future there was concern about, admissions volatility, we could look back at our admissions policy as to how we apportion seats. But I also would agree that we've got the unusual capacity to bring on other communities. And I think Pembroke
Right.
is an example of a community that's taking a wait and see approach. Let's see what the cost of the building is. Let's see if the project passes. And so, yes, that plus, as you've said it at many meetings, the ability for us to potentially take in non-resident students if at any point there
Right.
wasn't enough demand, which I don't think would be. I don't think that's a reality in the short term, but certainly in the upper grades, it could that could happen. But at the end of the day, how much money we can afford to put into our operating budget will determine how many kids we can enroll.
Right. yeah, that's true too, yeah.
It could take us 10 years to get to a school of 900. It really
Hey, Tom-
depends on the towns funding the budgets, but we'll have the infrastructure in place and we know the demand is there. It's just, it might take us a little bit longer. So yes, there are definitely options for this district going forward when we have more space to offer seats to more kids.
Hey, Tom, I have a question for you. So five
Joe.
years into this, the 9 communities have paid a good portion to build this school. And so when the new community comes in, I'm not sure you do this full rolling year average. It doesn't seem fair to the 9 communities that have ponied up 5 years to build this school. So I'm just saying, I'm not sure what you were saying earlier actually does work.
The one exception I would say, Joe, that's worthy of calculation that I hope to have this extra calculation to talk about would be exactly what you said. The only thing that we've had up to this point is we've been saving money in a piggy bank. We've been saving money in stabilization. And excuse me. And so when Marshfield was asked to pay for their share, I think that by the time town X comes in, our stabilization account will have been spent.
Right.
And like you said, the communities will have started to pay a sum of money over 4 or 5 years. So instead of saying what portion of the stabilization fund might a future town contribute to, we might look at that plus what our towns have paid. And
Right.
then,
Yeah, I'm
and
thinking,
then
I'm
calculate an offset.
not trying to complicate it, but I'm thinking of
Oh,
this.
Oh, no. This is,
There has
this
to be
is not,
a buy-in amount, not just, when Marshall got in, right, the school
Well-
had been around for so long, it had gone through the whole depreciation process.
Yep.
This is a brand new school that 9 communities have funded.
yes.
So again,
And they'll
not
be-
trying to complicate it, I would be thinking about a buy-in process. For the
Yeah,
new.
I would say, what did we have in stabilization to feasibility, to study the feasibility of the project? And what have our 9 towns spent up until a new community comes in?
Right.
And then you figure out a way to say, how do you backfill from that
Right.
amount? So nobody feels as though someone got an unfair deal.
Right.
But on the same question that I have here is like with Marshfield coming in, did they have to pay anything towards the stabilization funds that we already raised as an A community? Did they have to put in towards that?
Yes, they did. And we
Okay,
calculated a
that's
proportional
all.
share.
Yeah, right, exactly. So it'd be the same process going forward, Joe, that they
Yeah.
would have to be step up to the plate with coming in with a buy-in amount.
I look forward-
Again, I agree, just these numbers are gonna be bigger that you're talking about in terms
Yeah.
of building.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
gonna be.
They
agreed.
will be.
They're gonna be
But you're,
bigger.
They
but you're
will-
right, Joe, to point that out. Thank you.
Yeah, so I want to just flip it for 1 second, Tom, and speak about Marshfield. I don't want Marshfield to think that if they don't go in now, they can get in later for a cheaper amount. I'm actually protecting the vote against Marshfield. Right? I'm saying I want to make sure that when you speak to people like Morosco and so forth, they understand if you don't come in now, you don't get a break later.
Yeah, I mean, Marshfield is in with both feet and, they're a full voting member. And again, I think this model of the pay as you go gives everyone the opportunity to say, you should pay your share based on the children from your community who come here. And this speaks to that spirit. And given that 8 towns had saved some money and Marshfield is contributing a share, I think the formula will work. I think it's going to work. And I think your point is well taken that there'll be a slight tweak because the next time we're not going to admit another community prior to a new building being open. we're at our capacity. This is a 2029 or 2030. But you're right, by that point, we will have had several years of 9 communities paying the interest and principal on a new project. We do a calculation and we do a look back, I think that will be the way to go. I absolutely agree.
Okay, great.
Let's get to that point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you for those questions.
Okay, so moving on. I'm going to take the roll for the vote. Abington. Tom? You're muted. We'll move on. Cohasset.
Cohasset, yes.
Abington, yes.
Okay, thank you. Hanover.
Yes.
Hanson, Frank's not here, right?
Correct.
Marshfield.
Yes.
Norwell.
Yes.
Rockland.
Yep.
Situate. Yes. Whitman.
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Great.
Now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion with all due respect.
Second.
Who seconded?
Hanover.
Thank you. Call the roll again. Abington,
Yes.
Cohasset,
Yes.
Hanover,
Yes.
Marshfield,
Yes.
Norwell,
Yes.
Rockland,
Yes.
Situate, yes. Whitman.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries as well. Gentlemen, we are done for the evening.